Hey guys, it's Brian here again. We're doing something a bit different. Now, I'm trying to solve this problem that I have. So we're gonna make some changes, we're gonna get some stuff ready, and then we're also looking at lenses and stuff today too, purposely for the fact of, once again, having that 3 camera operation, but also making sure that we can actually focus on different areas and focus on how to properly capture all 7 different areas that we focus on in the video and photo world. So we're at ProCam today. I've been here a few times now. This is a Cincinnati location, which every time I've been here, I've never had an issue with filming in here or testing out their equipment. And honestly, you guys have been fantastic, so thank you. So today we're gonna be testing out, like I said, a few different lenses, and we're gonna go right off the rip. We're starting off with the G Master 28-70. Now, this lens, of course, I've seen it a few times. I haven't used one live in public yet, but what we're looking for is a lens that's a standard adjustability. Now, typically most people like to go with a 24-70 because of the focal length. Me personally, I use a 28-75 all the time. That's my Tamron lens. So I'm not a stranger to using a 28 version, but I'm curious if it's going to be too much of a chokehold with doing a 28-70 versus doing a 28-75. Now, with f2, you're always going to get a much sharper image and you're going to have a lot of bokeh. So with that being said, what we're looking at here in general is worrying about that use case scenario. We shoot a lot of events, we shoot a lot of things that, can be set up in stage, but most of the time what we're doing is run and gun shoot. So we have to really focus a lot on what areas we can actually utilize the tools in, which is also why we don't really use primes. So first thing I'm looking at is actually the punch in on it. Now in post, we can always punch in more, especially with the A7 IV that we use. It's a 7K sensor that shoots 4K. So when we're looking at this stuff, we're looking at the detail and stuff that we can actually capture out of everything, but also have the blur effects in the background here. You can see kind of where my finger is. It focuses out a little bit of the TVs, and we're gonna focus right on the SD card holders and stuff here, but it really makes a huge difference. Now autofocus too on the GM lenses are nice, and that's one thing I do kind of take for granted. I come from doing basically manual everything, manual focus, manual aperture, manual every tool that we have. So I don't always focus just on the autofocus capabilities. I know a tool for me is going to be a lot different than a tool for some other people. But honestly, going through with all this and seeing how it actually interacts with everything right now is honestly pretty cool. Sony's have a great natural color science, but we usually shoot S-Log3. The S-Log3 that the A7 V has versus this A7 R5 is a little bit different, and it compares a bit more to the Burano series that Sony has. So we really want to make sure that, the lens itself has good color, good sharpness, good punch-in, which this absolutely has. But once we put on the 24-70 from Sigma, we're going to take a little bit more of a look of what can actually go on with that. The other lens we're looking at today is the Sigma 24-70. I have the competitor, which is a 28-75 from Tamron. The thing I like about it is that it just has that little bit extra reach for when we're doing events. So I'm trying to see if it makes sense to do something like this for the standard look so we have it, or if it makes sense just to buy another Tamron 28-75. Now, right away I can tell you, going off of what I'm seeing in the viewfinder, the colors and stuff are nice. It's a little bit on the blue tone of everything. So, and that's something a few people have complained about these lenses, is that the tones tend to differ, and especially the version 1 versus version 2. They went from blue tones apparently to warmer tones. And then the other issue they ran into is a little bit of warping. So what we can see here, and this is the areas that I'm talking about, you can see a little bit of a slope going on with the with it punched in all the way to 70. Now it's just something natural that this lens has in the right and left corners of it. We shoot on a wire format, it's not nearly as noticeable. There's definitely some fall off and a little bit of distortion, but it's not absolutely horrendous, especially within price points that these lenses are within. It might actually make sense to do stuff like this just because, the 28-70 is around a $3,500 lens versus this is around a $1,200 to $1,500 lens. So you're really kind of figuring out different things that works best for you and where you actually want to spend the money on it. So the 24-70 is a really nice lens. I'm actually enjoying it. I definitely want to try out the Gen 2 version before I make a full decision on this. But the biggest thing with it in general is that I like, one, the price point that it's within, and then number two, the big thing I like about them too is that it honestly has a nice standard look that everybody's used to. Everybody knows what it's like. I kind of see the difference now between the 28-75. It's just been a long time since I've used the 24-70. So it's not a bad look. Let's look at the next lens though. The next lens on my roster is the 16-35. mainly because of the fact that when we're shooting events or shooting stuff like aviation, automotive, and all that, we actually don't always have the space that we want. And sometimes with social media clients as well, we focus tremendously on using our 10 mil that we have, which is the Laowa 10 millimeter. Having the adjustability for events and stuff is something that I've been really curious about. That way we can have a niche 10 mil wide super look that's great for real estate and so many other areas. But you know, we could also have the adjustability of 16 to 35 for when you're running a shoot that's run and gun events, that kind of stuff in general. So it's definitely kind of curious to me of what we could actually do with these kinds of lenses. So 16-35, you gotta think when you're actually gonna be utilizing this stuff. This is gonna be stuff for if you're doing automotive, it's rolling and moving shots, all the way to wide establishing shots, showing off buildings, interiors, or establishing the scene. So when we're looking at this kind of stuff, especially when you're doing events, you have to learn how to actually direct and teach people what they're going to be doing. Now, I shoot one event specifically called Imaginarium every year out in Washington, DC. And every year I run into this issue where I either have something like my 10 millimeter prime on it or something just like a 28-75. That's where I think the 16-35 really is going to make a huge difference in what we're doing for event-based video and, you know, other videos in general, especially interviews too. I think having something like this would be unique. You know, we don't really get to work with primes because of all the areas we film and work within. So having a way to adjust things for talking head videos and informational videos for clients is going to be a really key thing. And when we get over to lighting, we'll get to, you know, look at that stuff too. So one of the ones they have here for us to try out is a 14-24. This is part of their rental kit, but I'm just kind of curious in general. The thing I am worried about is that it's a little bit on the bulbous side, so there's usually a lot of distortion issues and stuff we'd have to correct in post. Not the end of the world, but going down to a 14-24 might honestly be a good adjustability range for, once again, our event-based stuff and all that. And some aviation too, because in aviation we deal with stuff where planes are moving and being relocated around in the backgrounds and all this other stuff, and sometimes it's really nice to capture that for the videos that we're doing for our clients. So let's give this guy a try.
So this guy is 525, and then
once again, clients and stuff specifically are looking for more social media content and looking for more stuff to be able to be captured while we're filming. So I'm looking at these vertical brackets here. There's a 16:9 ratio. Now it's nice to have that little punch-in of a 24, and then having the 14 is actually kind of nice as well. It's a bit different of a lens and not something I would normally consider, but because it's a 2.8 and it has a wider adjustability than the 16-35, plus when you're doing film, you're not always looking for the sharpest looks in everything you do, especially with a wide angle lens. You can't expect to have the sharpest image that you're going to have out of it. This is not a bad way to bridge the gap between my 28-75 that's being shot on this A7 V and, you know, wider focal points with like my 10 millimeter. So moving things over to this might actually be a better move than doing something like a 16-35. One thing that's really apparent about this lens right away though, it's heavy. It's got some heft to it. It's really weird to me seeing a lens that has this much weight to it. Now, does it relatively matter because of all the gear we actually move around and use? Not really, but sometimes this stuff does matter eventually, and a lens that weighs what feels like almost 10 pounds, I mean, it's exaggerating, of course, it's probably realistically about 5 to 6 pounds, but it's just kind of different compared to other things I've used. So it's going to make the camera itself very top heavy, so we'll have to weight it in the back to make it more balanced. There's a lot of stuff to consider when you're using lenses like this, and we'll see if we do a 16-35 or if we're going to move into the 14-24. So this is a tried and true classic. This is an old 70-200 GM2. Now, last time I used one of these, I was out in Las Vegas filming for another company. Usually these lenses get rented out a lot. They're usually very niche areas, but because one of our niche clients and stuff that we work with is an automobile racing team, you know, we need to think about this kind of stuff. And me personally, being from everything in the pit lanes, all the way to on the sidelines, having the adjustability of a 70-200 really kind of started making a lot of sense to me lately. Instead of having to switch over and put on my 28-75 quick from my 150-500, it'd be nice to have this adjustability, I feel like, overall. So right away, you can see the colors are really nice. Now, this camera's set up in S-Log3, so don't mind that. Big thing too is that this offers a 2.8 versus my, 150-500 is only an f4 lens, or f4 and up, I should say, which is, once again, great for automotive when you're shooting from far on the sidelines. But now that we're looking at multiple camera operations, we need to rethink how we're going to invent the wheel here with all this stuff. And honestly, this is kind of nice because I can punch in and grab quick shots in photo mode or video mode. Honestly, switch to vertical content with them further away. I can move this up to like an f5.6, have more of them in focus while we're filming. So a lot of this actually kind of makes sense to do. But the 70-200, honestly, it's just such a good try and true lens. It gets the job done. Fantastic autofocus. It like never fails. Every time I use this lens, it's just absolutely fantastic. Fantastic lens. I love it, honestly. And biggest thing too, I always forget about these, is for a telephoto lens, it is way super light. Without fail, this lens always surprises me. So let's go ahead though. Let's look at some lighting options and stuff for the company too. We need to figure out 3 lighting sources as a total for this, because what we're going to start doing is building the business in 7, 5s, and 3s overall, so that way we can overcome any situation we need for productions. So guys, as I said, one of the major areas we're looking at as well, of course, is lighting. Lighting is one of the most important things you need for any kind of production, especially those who do talking head stuff and more. So let's get to it. When you're focused on lighting, you actually want to create different areas of how the light hits the person. Right now, this is just all kind of evened out and equal toned. One of the big things I look for, because I work in a lot of indoor settings and some outdoor, of course, is lights that are strong enough that can work inside and just a little bit outside. I'm gonna be real though, most of the time using outside lights, it's gonna have to be something that's more attached to the camera, which I have that solution already. I'll show you once we're all set with all this today. But the big thing that we're going to be looking at is the 2 Amran 660Cs, because of indoor lighting situations where we can control everything, bring backdrops and stuff like that in, and then using an accent piece light that allows you to create a little bit of coloring, like what you can see here with the light behind me. And this is just a good old Amran, what are you, a 60C. And honestly, this is going to be something that I'm kind of curious about in general, is utilizing stuff like this to create more cinematic and deeper looks and creating more depth to your image and stuff as you're shooting. So let's go ahead, let's dive in, and let's go ahead and adjust these 2 lights here to create a shadowed side and a proper lit side. So one of the things that's actually really nice is the dial controls. Now, I know before even getting into this that this has phone capabilities. We can actually tether this to our phone to adjust everything off of Amaran's app. Now, I have some Nanlite stuff, I have some Amaran stuff, and this is kind of the final battle for me is, do I want to stick with one or the other because of the ecosystem that it's all involved in? But right away, I can tell you right now, I love the simple ecosystem. Right away, it's just really easy, in your face controls, and like I feel like anyone could hop in and just kind of do this, if that makes sense. Let's set this one to 2500, really make things kind of yellow, and we're going to utilize that to emphasize the shadowing and casting that's going to be on the other side. And we're going to use that with a little bit of a cool light, so we have 2 different color tones within our lighting tones. So one of the things, I'm kind of vertically challenged here, so adjusting this one up here would be much nicer to have the phone controls, obviously. I just don't want to force myself to bring this back down, honestly. So I'm doing the lazy method. There we go. We're gonna make this light a little bit on the bluer side, so you can get a little bit of a natural teal and orange look. This is the Amaran 60C. We're just gonna adjust this, get a color tone that matches more of what we're doing, really. There we go. We got that tealish color going on in the back. As you can see, I have a warmer side going on here. I purposely had my hat on. I would put my glasses on, but they're kind of dirty, so I'm not gonna mess you guys up that much. And what we're doing with the left side with the 660C is actually focusing on a cooler light because everything is shot in S-Log3. And as you can see here, one of the things I was worried about, I love panel lights. I used to use them all the time when I worked in Vegas, but these don't create a strong enough casting right now against the back wall. Now, I'm sure we could make it do that, but having a directional light would honestly fix this a bit more, like a spotlight will fix this a bit more. So I'm gonna have to look at that as two options, utilizing the panel lights for some situations, and then using something like the Amron 100D for different situations to create sharper casting, kind of like what they do in your Netflix documentaries. If you guys are running into the same issues as I am, hopefully this helps you out a little bit. Like I said, today is an R&D day, so it's a research and development as we get ready to purchase these next items and get things ready for the production agency to go to its next steps and what we can offer to people. So hope to see you guys in the next video. See ya.